Okay, these TikTokers might be the dumbest fraudsters ever. Now, there are arguably many options out there in the running for this coveted position, but in this case, I say this for one specific reason. What was their end game? How did they think that this wouldn't end in a total disaster? You see, this is a married couple who recently pled guilty to wire fraud after engaging in a conspiracy to essentially use social media to defraud people by styling themselves as a Temu Chip and Joanna Gaines, posing as one-stop shop custom home builders / architects / interior designers. And apparently they are none of those things. And despite getting over $5 million out of 40 people who thought they were getting custom renovated homes, out of 25 projects, you want to know how many this couple actually completed? 0. Zilch. None. Nil. Absolutely nothing. Now, obviously on the surface, you can be like, oh, well, they managed to defraud 40 people and trick them into 24 different projects. So maybe this couple isn't all that dumb. But once you hear the details of how they were using all of this money, you can tell that this scheme was never going to last long. And I think that the fact that it lasted as long as it did was just, I don't know,
sheer dumb luck.
There's a lot of dumb in this story. Let's get into it. Chris and Raquelle Judge are a married couple in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And sometime around August 2020, they decided to start a business venture together, and it's called fraud. But more specifically, they set up an LLC called Judge DFW and started advertising mostly through social media, claiming they performed one-stop shop for custom home construction and interior designs. They would use Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as word of mouth for this whole thing. And according to the complaint, it looks like they started out by targeting local mom groups on Facebook and just kind of went from there. Now, I will say, I went to their social media profiles and it looks like at some point here, they scrubbed basically everything that had to do with this fake renovation business. But if you do check them out, there are a lot of trolling comments about them wearing orange and decorating their dream jail cell, which honestly, that kind of made me chuckle. But I did find their YouTube channel, which still had an advertisement for Judge DFW services.
You get to pick a contemporary floor plan that comes with all the latest features, like the color of cabinets and the type of countertops. Or maybe you want wood floors instead of carpet.
And you get to move in knowing that you don't have to make any.
It also includes a couple attempts at humor sketches involving real estate.
There's no lockbox on the door. There's no way we can get in.
We should go try to call the suspect. Is that a 4 or 9?
I'm gonna go with 9 because that looks more like a 4 to me. And that also looks like a 4, but I could be wrong.
Is this a 7 or is that a 7? What is this?
And that is all I will show of that because I don't want to be petty and it is painful to watch, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a feel for how this business has sort of faced the public on social media over the years. Anyway, once a potential client / victim showed interest as part of the scheme, the judges would give them a below market bid for the project, and they would promise completion within 4 to 6 months. Then they'd sign a contract for payment in exchange for the work, and the victim would pay in installments over the coming weeks or months. Now, I will admit, I don't know all that much about home construction or renovations. What I know basically comes from what I've seen from friends and family members getting their homes renovated. And I don't know, 46 months sounds a little bit tight for a lot of projects based on what I've just generally casually observed. But then again, for projects that are less extensive, obviously those will take less time. And I guess, that could fall within 4 to 6 months pretty easily. But seeing footage from some of these projects in this case, I'm surprised they promised what at least seems to me anyway, like a short timeline for what looks like very extensive work that sometimes even involves what looks like structural work for the home. And the thing is, when it comes to many things in life, if you want both speed and quality of work, you're usually going to pay a premium for that combination. But if you're paying less than what the market usually provides, there's likely going to be some give in either the speed or the quality of the work, or sadly in this case, both. Now, I'm not saying any of this to try to shade any of the victims in any way. I have zero interest in doing any of that. And my perception of this timeline of 4 to 6 months for a project could also be completely wrong. I only say this as sort of part of the learning experience that we often have in looking at these kinds of cases. And so when we're looking at these cases, obviously we're looking at them in hindsight, and it's a lot easier to pick things up than they are when you're in the moment and living them in real time. But we can often pick up some red flags here and there and see what we can learn and what we can apply in our own lives. And so this 4 to 6 month promised timeline with such a low budget for the project may have been a couple red flags. Now, something else to point out here, and probably a big reason that these people believed these big promises that were sold to them, is that a material selling point in the fraud is that Chris Judge would also tell these people that he was an architect. Now, apparently in Texas, you don't need any kind of licensing to be a general contractor. But you still can't hold yourself out as an architect if you're not an architect. Like, the word architect has very specific meaning in the United States. It's like going around and calling yourself a doctor if you're not a doctor, or a lawyer if you're not actually a lawyer. And if Chris Judge didn't know that when he started this whole scheme, he sure as hell knew by May of 2022. That's because the Texas Board of Architecture got wind of his LARPing and informed Judge DFW that Chris and the LLC had violated the Texas Administrative Code by referring to Chris as an architect and to the company as Judge DFW Architecture. But apparently this notice didn't stop Chris from this whole architect LARPing spiel until at least the feds got involved. Anyway, once these two people would have someone sign a contract for a job, the customer would pay the judges the first of multiple installments for the work. And that's where these greedy bastards would get cooking. You see, the funds were deposited into the remodeling company's business account, but then not only did they get mixed with the funds deposited by other customers, but they also got commingled with the judge's personal funds. And in any industry, and basically any situation, this will almost always get you into trouble. Let me just say this directly. If someone is holding funds that do not belong to them, maybe they could belong to them at a later point, but they don't yet, and they're essentially holding them in escrow for some specific purpose, like a project, the moment that you mix the funds of other people with your own funds, you have got some serious legal issues. And then if you let them all sit together in this whole mixed pot of money, and then you start using that as your own personal piggy bank, now we have a world of hurt. And that essentially describes what Chris and Raquelle Judge did here. For one thing, they would take one person's funds and use them for construction materials for some other customer. Then they'd also take customers' funds and pay for their own personal living expenses, including luxury items. So out of around $6.1 million that was deposited to the business account, they took around $865,000 for their own personal use. $285,000 was quote-unquote payroll to the defendants. $133,000 was just cash withdrawals. $82,000 was Amazon purchases. $70,000 for legal fees and lawsuits, also interesting. $27,000 on their own personal mortgage payments. $10,000 for Walmart. And my personal favorite, $10,000 for plastic surgery. It doesn't say if this was for Chris or Raquelle, but I would imagine there's a good possibility it was for the both of them. So now with all of this money that is going to fund their personal lives, an obvious question is presented here. What happened to the actual construction projects? Well, according to the complaint, they would start on a project so the customers would continue to make installment payments. But then things would kind of quickly start to get wonky. Construction would stop or slow down, or something would get messed up. And when customers would start asking questions, the judges would start making excuses, and then they'd assure them that problems and delays would be corrected and everything would end up right in the end and on time, so long as these people continued to dutifully make their installment payments. But if that didn't satisfy the customer who still had questions, they would just walk away from the project and ghost the customer completely.
And that's it. Then they walked off.
Kristen Newman says this is how the judges left her home construction project in Cleburne. She lost roughly $200,000 and spent the same amount of money for someone else to finish the job.
Meanwhile, for the limited work that they actually did do, they often employed substandard contractors to do minimal work, and they even failed to pay those guys. And then the work that apparently was done was not just done poorly, it was done in a way that made these places incredibly unsafe. For one thing, the judges received a total of 424 citations from code enforcement for city violations on some of these projects. And it looks like most, if not all, customers needed to pay other contractors, not just to complete the job that they had already paid for, but in at least some cases, they also needed to pay someone competent to actually undo what Judge DFW had done to their home. And when I say they already paid for this work, I am talking usually in the ballpark of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the horrible thing is, for these people, the problems didn't just end there. Because remember, we're not just talking about like some business deal that just went south. That alone would be bad enough. I mean, anytime someone is losing money, that is money that people have earned through their own efforts, through their own labor, that is time that's taken away from their families, taken away from other people, other meaningful events in their lives. People make sacrifices for the money that they make. But on top of that, we're talking about people's homes. This is where they've raised their families, or they hope to raise families. And their entire lives have been completely upended by getting mixed up in all of this. And some of these people even had to file bankruptcy. And they were so financially gutted that they couldn't afford Christmas for their kids for multiple years.
We did have to file bankruptcy, and we're dealing with that for another 5 years.
Jeremy Congleton says he hired the judge's company to design and construct his family's home in Decatur, but the judges never finished it. His family lost $250,000. His 2 daughters, excited to live in a new home, forced to live with him and his wife in a camper for 18 months.
They didn't have Christmas for about 3 years.
It is so heartbreaking. I pray that I never have to tell my kiddo that we have to cancel Christmas for literally any reason, let alone that someone essentially stole all of our money so that they could fund their luxurious lifestyle. I can't even imagine how gutting that must feel for those parents to have that conversation, especially multiple years in a row. Anyway, luckily the feds got involved, and on August 11th, 2025, a criminal complaint was filed against the couple. Then they were indicted on September 3rd, and in December, both of them pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, apparently taking some kind of a plea deal that was offered to them, and this means that they both are facing potential prison time and a requirement to pay restitution to the victims. So now, as of filming this video, Raquelle's sentencing is scheduled for April 14th, 2026, where she's facing 5 years in prison, and Chris is facing 20 years at his sentencing scheduled for about a month later on May 12th, 2026. The prosecution is actually trying to push back Raquelle's sentencing so it's on the same day as Chris's. And they argue that this is best for multiple reasons that essentially serve to maximize court efficiency and conserve judicial resources. That's because they say that pushing Raquelle's hearing to the same day as Chris's sentencing means that they can put both of these hearings together to be heard at the same time. Specifically, prosecutors say that it's their understanding that multiple victims attended the guilty plea hearings for both defendants, and they think that these people might also want to attend the sentencing hearings and to directly address the court with victim impact statements. This is where victims can tell the judge how the defendant's criminal acts have impacted their lives in all kinds of ways. And these victim impact statements can help to inform the judge as to what a proper sentencing here should be. So victim impact statements actually can be pretty important to this whole process. Anyway, on top of that, prosecutors also say it's their understanding that both Raquelle and Chris intend to dispute the amount that they'll need to pay to the victims. And so basically they're saying that it just makes sense to put all of this together into one hearing. However, Raquelle's counsel has pushed back on this and is asking to keep the same hearing date that they currently have. You see, apparently Chris and Raquelle have 4 young children, the youngest of which is under 2 years old. And so they say that staggering the hearings gives them a little bit of buffer to figure out what to do with their future childcare for those 4 young kids. And courts do take into consideration defendants' family situations in these kinds of decisions. For example, they point to the fact that they don't know if either of these jokers will be sent to federal prison, receive probation, or receive some sort of hybrid staggered sentence. And so they argue that this consideration outweighs the inconvenience to victims who want to speak at the sentencing hearing, partly because they can give a written statement that can be read to the judge by someone else if they can't make it themselves. Now, I can see the interest on both sides of this issue here, but I could see the court actually keeping the hearings staggered in favor of the defense. Although I think it probably wouldn't be the end of the world if the defendants had to take between now and May to come up with some kind of a contingency plan for them both going to prison on the same day. At the same time, courts also don't like to be cruel to people who didn't actually do anything wrong here. And an argument can be made that these poor kids are just as much victims of their parents' stupid scheming as anyone else. So the logic would follow, and I actually kind of agree with this, is that they shouldn't be held responsible for their parents' literal crimes. It is bad enough that these kids are facing a possibility of being totally parentless for some period of time because their parents are knuckleheads. And to be clear, as far as their parents are concerned, it's completely justified. Let me also be super clear when I say that these parents should be held responsible to the maximum extent that the law will permit, in my personal opinion. So while I feel bad for the kids, you know, justice is justice at the end of the day. But also, can I just say that finding out that these two have 4 little kids somehow makes this so much worse. I don't know, maybe my experience is a little bit less common than I thought, but when we had baby bites, my and Mr. Bite's brains immediately started thinking way more long term. Like, where are we going to end up? What are our family's goals? What will things look like overall for our family in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Like, how did these people not think and worry about the future impact on their children when they decided to start to do crime? And like, not only that, but the kind of crime that was never going to end up well. Like, this is why I think that they are the dumbest fraudsters ever.
These are people of the land, the common clay of the New West. You know, morons.
They landed all of these clients promising to give them quality construction projects at rates below the market and at a pretty fast pace. They failed to pay their subcontractors, and then they didn't seem too keen on actually finishing literally any of these projects. Like, if we were talking about some influencers that tricked people into some cryptocurrency meme coin,
my hot meme coin is love!
Or maybe a bad NFT project that was destined to never actually reach completion.
September 1st, cryptozoo.co. I'm going to tease it. That's all I'm going to say about it now, because we're finishing up the development, but I am so excited about this project. It's so fun. It provides a yield with a token, can earn you money. And as a person who understands, I think, the NFT space enough to know what works, what people want, and what they're looking for, I think my game is going to make some waves.
In cases like those, there could at least be like some kind of obscurity that the digital scammer can try to pull over the eyes of the victims and maybe try to get away with it. And sometimes they actually do get away with it. But in this case, we're talking about people's physical homes. Homes that were promised to be completed in 6 months. Like, people are going to catch on pretty quickly when they paid for a home and there's still no home. I mean, were they planning to like start Ponziing their way to start completing some of these earlier projects with funds that they got from later customers? I don't think we could even say that like that is likely, because they simply weren't even paying their subcontractors to begin with. And that's after they probably weren't even getting enough money from their customers to cover their expenses because they were charging them at below the market rate. So as far as scams go, how long did they think that they were going to be able to continue with this scam? And I do honestly feel bad for their children because, like I said, they have no say in any of this. No child can ever choose their parents. They can only hope to be born into a family where their parents try to make decisions geared towards building something better for them in the future. But rather than plan for some kind of a future, it's like these two just built what looked like it could be kind of a viable business and then just immediately started gutting it from within. And they did so in a way that just, like I said, it was never going to end up lasting for any period of time. And that's why I think these two defendants are total idiots. But those are my thoughts. What do you think? Do you think I'm being too hard on them? Are you maybe more familiar with construction than I am? Do you think that the 4 to 6 month timeline is actually reasonable for some of these projects? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this or at least found it interesting or informative. And if you did, I would love it if you would hit the like button. It does help us with the YouTube algorithm gods. And if you're new here and you want to see more coverage of crazy cases and interesting legal topics, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can find out when the next video is out there. And if you're really enjoying the content and you want to know how to best support the channel, consider becoming a member of Byte Club. You can join either through YouTube memberships or by becoming a supporter on Patreon. Links to both are in the description below. Otherwise, see you in the next one.